Welcome to Last Dawn Stories channel. The apocalypse came, and I kindly took in my uncle's family, only to be devoured by them. The mastermind was my mother. She believed her daughter was useless and conspired with outsiders to kill me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time when my uncle's family first came to my home for shelter. They were discussing eating my dog. Hearing the shouts from my uncle's family in the living room, my expression turned cold. I had been reborn. In my past life, out of familial affection, I risked my life to find food for them during the apocalypse, but when I was injured, they blamed me for not bringing back enough food. Just like that, I was abandoned, and they even conspired with my mother to kill and eat me. Now, after taking them in, they've set their sights on my dog, Lucky. Outside, my younger sister was still arguing with them, while inside, my overly compassionate mother was earnestly trying to persuade me. It's just a dog. How could it be closer to you than your uncle and cousin? You need to think this through. Seeing that I remained silent, she looked troubled. We're out of meat at home. Tom is a growing young man. He needs some protein. It's not good for him to go without proper nutrition. I sneered and glanced at her, almost 26 and still growing. Seeing me argue back, my mother's face immediately darkened, putting on a lecturing expression. In the apocalypse, we still have to rely on Tom. Seeing her still lost in her own world, I sneered and slammed the bedroom door open with a loud bang. My gaze met the fat and greasy Tom slouched on the sofa, and my anger flared up. I grabbed the broom nearby and hurled it at him. My mother screamed and rushed forward to hit me, but before she could succeed, I grabbed her arm and flung her away with a forceful motion. She let out a cry as she collided with Tom, before she could reach out for his help. He pushed her to the ground again with a look of disgust. Seeing the situation turn sour, my aunt quickly stepped in to divert my mother's attention. Oh dear, Sophia, your daughter has such a hard heart. She even dares to hit her own mother. Anyone who didn't know better would think you two were enemies. With a temper like hers, no decent family would ever want her as a daughter-in-law, even if she were given away for free. My aunt's face twisted into a sour, mean expression, instantly reminding me of how she spread rumors about me being someone's mistress. I'll never forget the pain of being pointed at and whispered about during my college years. Well then, let's settle both old and new scores together. Blind with rage, I grabbed her by the hair and dragged her toward the bathroom. My aunt immediately let out a piercing scream. Hearing the commotion, my uncle emerged from the bathroom and gasped at the scene, rushing to intervene, only to be accidentally blocked by my mother. Locked the bathroom door securely. With a sinister grin, I pressed my aunt's entire plump face into the toilet bowl, which hadn't been flushed yet. At this point, the water supply hadn't been cut off, so the toilet was still functioning normally. As she struggled, filthy water kept splashing out. I simply grabbed the nearby plunger to replace my hands, shoving her deeper inside. Listening to her gurgling sounds as she tried to speak but couldn't, I felt an unprecedented sense of exhilaration. I laughed maniacally. You idiot, aren't you always talking about how this is dirty and that is dirty? Now you're the dirtiest of all. Aren't you happy? When I opened the bathroom door and walked out, no one dared to make a sound. Tom even took a few steps back in fear. No one dared to mention eating dogs again, afraid I might go crazy and shove them into the toilet too. I gave my sister a look, and she picked up Lucky and followed me back to the bedroom. Seeing the sparkle in her eyes, I couldn't help but laugh. Sis, you're amazing. I was really scared they'd eat Lucky. She put down Lucky, who immediately started circling around me happily. Tears welled up in my eyes. In my past life, my mom said dogs aren't as close as humans, but when I was in danger, it was Lucky who bit the zombie's pant leg, buying me time to escape, though he stayed there forever. When I returned home battered and bruised, my mom and the others just said, "It's just a dog, it's dead," and even blamed me for not bringing it back so they could have a feast. How utterly cruel. Human hearts are even more terrifying than the zombies outside. I crouched down and hugged Lucky, feeling its strong heartbeat, my nose tingling with emotion. So, is this what it feels like to regain what was lost? It seemed to sense my emotions too, staying obediently in my arms and whimpering softly. My aunt didn't appear in the dining room because she had drunk enough water from the toilet. At the dinner table, my mother hummed a tune, pleased that I had finally dealt with the aunt who had always been at odds with her. After all, since her divorce all those years ago, she had been living alone, and my aunt's sharp tongue had never missed an opportunity to tarnish her reputation, both openly and covertly. Looking at the watery soup in my bowl with only a few grains of rice, I snatched the half bowl of white rice piled high in front of Tom, divided half for my sister, and kept the other half for myself. My mother immediately protested, her shrill voice piercing my ears painfully. "What's a little girl like you doing eating rice? Hurry up and give it back to your Tom brother." I raised my head, my gaze fixed on her until she shrank back. Perhaps my outburst in the afternoon had genuinely frightened her, because this time she was much more subdued and didn't dare to make a sound. I marveled at the benefits of losing my temper. In my past life, I had begged them not to kill Lucky, and though they agreed, they would constantly bring it up just to make me feel guilty. Even though I wasn't at fault, I still had to obey them in everything and consider their needs above all else. That's what you call PUA, isn't it? But look at us now. Though we both managed to keep Lucky, our statuses have undergone a complete reversal. Seeing Tom's dissatisfaction with the watery soup and my uncle selfishly guarding his own bowl, my mother reluctantly handed her rice to Tom and settled for the nearly riceless broth herself. I didn't miss the venomous glare she shot my way. Truth be told, I resent her too. My mother is a selfless do-gooder, except all her kindness is reserved for my uncle's family. How much does he really care about his uncle's family, to put it this way? If she has a sip of soup, she's bound to give his uncle's family a whole pot of meat. When my younger sister was just born, my mom rushed to their house. At that time, Tom was already 9 years old and was still breastfeeding. With just one phone call from my uncle, my mom, who was still in her postpartum confinement, left. To avoid starving his nephew, she left my infant sister at home. My dad was so angry that he wanted to divorce her, but she didn't think she was wrong. She argued with my dad using her own reasoning. Drinking a little less milk won't kill you. The reason she was so confident was that I was the living proof of her neglect. I had survived despite her carelessness. After all, she had already succeeded once, so what was one more little sister? My father played both the roles of father and mother to raise the two of us. While my mother was absent from my and my sister's childhood for various reasons, eventually, my father couldn't take it anymore and divorced her. I knew my mother's nature all too well, so I voluntarily chose to stay with her, because I understood that only then would my sister have a better life. As expected, after divorcing my father, my mother became even more insecure. She even handed over all her money to my uncle and treated Tom as her lifeline. In her mind, I bear the Lincoln surname and am an outsider, while Tom is the true, prestigious bloodline of their Smith family. At the age of 17, I was admitted to the best university in our city, but she demanded that I give up my admission and go out to work with her. Despite my strong opposition, I learned the reason behind her decision: because Tom got a girlfriend, and her family demanded a $200,000 bride price. My uncle and aunt played the victim, claiming they had no money. So my mom decided to take on the responsibility. The solution she came up with was to have me give up my admission and work with her. Listen, how absurd. She threatened me that if I chose to go to school, she wouldn't give me a single penny, and she indeed followed through. For all 4 years of university, she didn't give me a single cent. Back then, Tom didn't even get into school, yet she had already prepared everything for him. She tried her hardest to prop Tom up. But there's a reason mud exists. No matter how much you try to lift it, it's still just mud, destined never to stay on the wall. I cut ties with her, paid my tuition with the money I earned from 2 months of work, and fortunately, I was lucky enough to meet a benefactor. At a young age, I managed to build a career of my own. At this thought, I turned back to look at her. She hadn't had time to retract her venomous gaze and could only pretend to yawn, offering me an awkward smile. When the apocalypse came, my father, being a doctor, was among the first to encounter the zombie virus. Due to confidentiality, he couldn't reveal much to me, only advising me to stock up on food and supplies for emergencies. A wave of the pandemic had just passed, and the memory of being trapped at home sent chills down my spine. I understood the importance of hoarding food. When I asked my father if it was a resurgence of the pandemic, he avoided answering directly, merely urging me to prepare early. At first, I just followed my dad's advice and stockpiled some food, but when frequent water and power outages started occurring in my city, to the point where even courier services couldn't operate, I began to understand what he meant. I started frequently purchasing supplies at various wholesale markets. To avoid drawing attention, I always moved the goods to my residence late at night when everything was quiet, after I had stockpiled enough supplies. My dad on the front lines unfortunately got infected with the zombie virus. Before turning into a real walking corpse, he called me, "Dad will always love you." By the time he finished saying those words, the other end of the phone had already turned into a living hell. I brought my sister to my home before the zombie virus outbreak became widespread. With ample supplies, we wouldn't starve in the short term. The early days of the apocalypse were relatively manageable, living in the suburbs. Though remote, meant abundant water resources, there were no large hordes of wandering zombies, and my high-rise apartment was safe. Mindless zombie creatures wouldn't climb tall buildings. Not long after, my mother suddenly showed up at my door. Watching her and my sister embrace in tears, I realized my sister must have given her my address. No wonder, my sister left our mother at a young age and has been longing for maternal love. I couldn't bring myself to directly send her away, so I could only gently persuade her, but my sister insisted that she had already talked to our mother and assured me that she would never side with outsiders. After a few days together, my mother seemed to have completely changed her attitude and never mentioned my uncle's family again. I truly believed she had turned over a new leaf, but I never expected she was saving up for something big. When my uncle's family appeared at our doorstep, laughing on the third floor, I knew it was over. Turns out, my mom had found out they ran out of food and, worried for their safety, had taken matters into her own hands without consulting us first. I had thought about refusing to let them in, but my mom threatened to kill herself, tears streaming down her face as she knelt and begged me. That one moment of weakness sealed my fate. The stockpiled food was quickly devoured with 4 extra mouths to feed, and that's exactly why they set their sights on Lucky, on the second day after my rebirth. Before heading out to scavenge for supplies, I brought someone along, my sister, Nicole. In my previous life, fearing my sister might get hurt in the apocalypse, I never let her go out to scavenge for supplies, keeping her at home all the time. During one escape, I fought desperately to kill zombies, neglecting others. To protect Tom, my mother pushed Nicole into a horde of zombies, weak and defenseless. Nicole was quickly overwhelmed by the undead. Her sorrowful, despairing gaze still haunts me in my midnight dreams. This time, I will start training Nicole early, ensuring she at least gains the most basic survival skills for the apocalypse. The two of us and a dog quietly went downstairs. As soon as we stepped outside, the pungent stench of decay filled our noses. Nicole, who hadn't been outside for a long time, vomited from the discomfort. I handed her a handkerchief, and we continued our journey only after she had recovered. Soon, we arrived at a supermarket. The supermarket had long been ransacked and left empty, but in my previous life, I stumbled upon a hidden door inside the store, where the warehouse still held a considerable amount of supplies. In my past life, upon discovering the supplies, I was overjoyed and hurried back to ask them to come with me to retrieve them, but no one stood up to follow except Nicole. They were afraid of the zombies outside. My mother knelt before me, crying as if her heart would break, saying it was too dangerous outside and they didn't dare to go out. I truly couldn't persuade them. They were shamelessly slacking off, and no one could do anything about it. But Nicole and I had to survive, so at that time, I had no choice but to compromise. A group of perfectly able-bodied adults pushed all the burdens onto 2 young girls. What a pathetic situation. Nicole gasped in excitement at the sight of the warehouse full of supplies, then quickly covered her mouth, afraid the zombies might hear. We took out the bags we carried with us and frantically stuffed them full. Suddenly, Lucky issued a warning. I turned around to see 2 staggering zombies rushing toward us. Nicole shivered in fear, and the bread in her hand immediately fell to the ground. The next second, she pulled me behind her. "Don't be afraid, sis." My body, which had instinctively wanted to charge forward, froze, and a wave of warmth surged in my heart. It's been so long since I last felt the sensation of being protected. In my past life, I cherished family ties and was extremely indulgent toward them. Every time zombies came, I was always the one charging at the front. Nicole took out a kitchen knife she had prepared in advance from her bag and whispered to me, "Sis, these 2 zombies seem to move quite sluggishly. If we fight together, we should be able to escape." Looking at her profile, I couldn't help but recall Nicole from my past life. Somehow, the current Nicole feels different from her previous self. In her previous life, she had started shutting herself in her room at some point, speaking very little. Whenever I tried to talk to her, my mother would always interrupt, whether intentionally or not. Perhaps the prolonged apocalypse in the later stages had changed her mindset. Now that I've been reborn, I believe I can lead her to safety. I handed her the bag I was holding, told her to watch, and then charged at the 2 zombies. These 2 zombies are the same ones I encountered in my previous life, so I'm very familiar with their weaknesses. Zombies at this stage haven't undergone any mutations yet, making them quite easy to kill. Both zombies lunged at me simultaneously. In my past life, I fought 2 zombies alone. Though it took some time, I managed to kill them both. Besides, After surviving in the apocalypse for so long back then, these small fry zombies were nothing more than a piece of cake. With a swift swing of my blade, one zombie's head rolled to the ground with a thud. After demonstrating for Nicole, I noticed her eager expression and handed the main stage over to her. Under my guidance, Nicole quickly took care of the other zombie. We stayed in the supermarket for a short while before heading back home, just like in my previous life. When I mentioned discovering supplies, they were all overjoyed, but when I asked who would come with me to retrieve them, not a single person responded. The room fell into a silence that lasted 2 full minutes. After exchanging glances, it was my mom who finally spoke up. My mom suddenly knelt beside me with a thud and said the same words as before. "Lydia, you and Nicole should go. You just came back from outside. You have experience. It's just a matter of making a few extra trips. We don't have any experience, so we'd better stay inside." I hadn't even spoken yet, but Nicole was already stomping her feet in anger. "How can there be people like you, Mom? You always say Tom is useful. Now that we need him, let him go." Andy stole a glance at me, and seeing that I remained silent, immediately straightened her back and said to Nicole with a sarcastic tone, "Oh, what do you know, you little girl? Tom is the root of the Smith family. How can we let him go for such a dangerous task? It's you girls who should go. In the end times, we'll still have to rely on our Tom. These menial tasks are exactly what you should be doing." As she spoke, she pulled my mother up to have her judge the matter. My mother nodded in agreement, aligning with my aunt's stance. Finding her words quite reasonable, I held back Nicole, whose face was full of disbelief, and gave my mother a cold glance, though she seemed a bit intimidated. She surprisingly didn't back down when it came to protecting Tom, then starved to death. "Don't even think about eating anything we brought back." Under my uncle's meaningful look, my mother plopped down onto the ground. "I can't go on living, Sue. Lydia, I'm your mother, and you're already abandoning me when nothing's even happened yet. I might as well die." "Then go ahead and die. If you're dead, you won't have to suffer anymore." "How wonderful." I threw the knife at her feet, and the wailing instantly stopped. For a moment, the air was filled with silence. See, those who always make a fuss about wanting to die are actually the most afraid of death. Even if you handed her the knife, she wouldn't stab herself but would find a way to stab someone else. There was no choice. All the food we brought back had already been placed in my bedroom, and I was in a fight to the death stance. I knew their nature. If you're weak, they'll bully you, but if you stand firm, they'll all turn into cowards. Helpless, they had no choice but to compromise and go out with me to move the supplies. When we returned to the supermarket, the food in the storage room was half of what I had seen before. My mom didn't dare provoke me and could only mutter under her breath, "Damn girl, couldn't even close the door properly. Now look, everything's been taken by others, at my request. We only took a quarter of what remained, after all." The other survivors also needed to live. It was a way to leave them some hope, and I had my own considerations. No matter how carefully we moved the supplies, the sheer number of large and small bundles made noise as we carried them upstairs, attracting the attention of those with ill intentions. Bang, bang, bang. The sudden knocking at the door startled everyone in the room. Since the apocalypse began, most people had fled to cities with better facilities, as far as I knew. Very few remained in this building, so, who, or what, was suddenly at the door? A person, or a zombie? My mother tensed up, leaned close to the door, and softly asked, "Who is it?" There was a rustling sound outside the door for a moment, followed soon after by a woman's voice. "Hello, I live downstairs. I saw you found supplies. I'd like to borrow some food. My child is only 3 years old. Could you lend us a little, just a little?" Hearing that it wasn't a zombie outside, my mother immediately relaxed. "What does your child have to do with me? We've got plenty of mouths to feed here. The food we brought back is barely enough for us to last a few days. How could we possibly spare any for you? Get lost, go on, get out of here." Though I've called my mother a saint, she's very clear about who she's saintly toward. Aside from her precious Smith family, she couldn't care less about anyone else's survival. And she's extremely clever. Amid her impatient words, she subtly revealed that there were many people in our household. This is also one of the reasons why I didn't drive her away. After all, Nicole and I are just 2 girls, and in the apocalypse, people's hearts are treacherous. It's inevitable that we might be targeted. If someone tried to rob us, my mom would be the first to refuse. I can already picture her reaction. Want to steal food from our Tom, over my dead body. Soon, the sound of a woman sobbing came from outside the door. Just as she was about to leave, I spoke up. "At the XH supermarket outside the neighborhood, if you hurry, there might still be some food left." A woman's surprised voice of thanks sounded at the door, then fell silent again. My mother glared at me angrily. "You just had to open your mouth, didn't you? Are you some kind of saint? You had to tell her." I ignored her. I knew who the woman outside was, another poor soul. I used to often hear her husband beating and cursing her. If she went back without borrowing any food, she would definitely get beaten. At least this way, returning with some news counted as something. But one night, that woman knocked on our door again. Through the door, I heard her say, "There's a group of people coming to cause trouble for you. You should run. There are quite a few of them." "Why are you telling me this?" The woman at the door chuckled softly, as if reminiscing for a moment before speaking again. "Miss, I know it was you who called the police last time. If it weren't for you, my husband would have beaten me to death. I'm so grateful to you, but I've let you down. I didn't leave him. My husband threatened me with our child, so I had no choice but to give in. Still, I want to thank you. Last time, when you told me about the food at XH supermarket, it saved me from another beating. I can't repay kindness with betrayal." I detected the oddness in her tone, but when I pulled open the door, I saw the woman's clothes were already tattered. She glanced back at me, as if having made up her mind, and jumped out of the hallway window. I rushed to the window and looked down, only to see the woman had already been reduced to a mangled mess on the ground. I sighed. The apocalypse, after all, had stripped people of all hope. The woman's warning was true. Just as dawn was breaking, a group of people arrived as promised. "Little sister, I know you're home. We've come to discuss something with you. The apocalypse is here, and every family has its own struggles. My grandson is only 3 years old, crying from hunger every day with nothing to eat. His mother suddenly disappeared yesterday. Who knows what happened? She must have abandoned the child and run off. I know you have plenty of food at home. Please show some kindness and share a little. In these end times, we all need to help each other." The voice of the old woman echoed outside the door. This hag was a master at tormenting her daughter-in-law. Her son was abusive, and not only did she fail to stop him, she often poured fuel on the fire. She even had the silver tongue to smooth things over when the police came knocking, covering up her son's crimes. Listening to her, I scoffed and said, "If you're really doing this for your precious grandson, then bring him here and let me see him." Outside, there was a moment of silence before the old woman replied, "The child is asleep. It's not convenient right now. Didn't you say he was crying from hunger? Is it that he's inconvenient to be seen, or has he already been eaten by you?" Gasps echoed both inside and outside the door. My aunt covered her mouth in shock. Good heavens, how could anyone eat their own child? Why not? I glanced at my mother's thoughtful expression and sneered inwardly. "Look, Ms. Sophia is already considering the feasibility of such a scenario." A few awkward chuckles came from outside the door. The old woman, exposed, retorted sharply with a hint of embarrassment, "How can you spout such nonsense? Girl, we'd never do anything illegal. My grandson is perfectly fine." She kept insisting that her grandson was fine, unaware that this only made her more suspicious, since none of us spoke up. She talked to the people outside for a while, perhaps knowing she had backup. She simply decided to throw caution to the wind. "I'm telling you, open the door while we're still in a good mood. If you cooperate, we might even leave you some food, but if you refuse, we'll just go all out. We'll lure all the zombies here, and none of us will survive." As soon as these words were spoken, my uncle's family became like ants on a hot pan, stomping their feet in panic. "What do we do? If they really lure the zombies here, we're doomed. Hurry, think of something." My uncle saw Tom cowering in the corner, completely useless, and quickly grabbed my sleeve. "Lydia, you've had more schooling. Think of something. Should we open the door or not?" "Of course not," I sneered. In the apocalypse, aside from a few idiots, no one would willingly put themselves in danger. The people at the door were just testing our limits, seeing if we'd be foolish enough to open it in the heat of the moment. The people at the door, hearing no movement from our side, grew impatient, and the old woman started shouting again, "I'm telling you, we really dare to smash this place, you filthy bitch. Just you wait." With that, the commotion at the door grew louder, and upon closer listening, the voices of several men could be heard. "I heard there are several women in this house. Once we get in, we're gonna have some fun. This isn't right. Breaking and entering is already illegal. We shouldn't push it any further. What the hell do you know, kid? The damn apocalypse is here, and you're still worried about the law. Might makes right now. Stop yapping and break the damn door down." "Heh heh heh, I was just saying, let them have hope first, then hit them with another blow. Isn't that the most despair-inducing thing of all?" the pounding on the door was deafening. Aside from Nicole and me, the others huddled together. Trembling, after a long pause, my aunt mustered the courage to shout outside, stop smashing, we'll open the door, just don't kill us, please." The banging at the door ceased, and those outside waited for us to open it. My mother shoved my aunt aside. "What kind of talk is that? If we really let them in, do you think we'd survive? Besides, those people outside want women. If we open the door, what do you think awaits us?" It must be said, my mother has a unique talent for discerning others' malice. She quickly grasped the consequences of opening the door. They wouldn't even look at two old hags like us, but my two daughters. Should they just let them be ruined for nothing? My mother scolded my aunt fiercely, leaving her with no face to save. Seeing no way out, my aunt simply gave up and muttered, "Fine then, let's all just die together." Nicole gripped my sleeve tightly, her eyes filled with panic. I patted her hand to reassure her not to worry too much. The people outside, finding the door still shut, felt they were being mocked. The banging grew louder, but despite their clamoring for a long time, the door remained unbroken. Huddled together, my uncle's family and my mom were no longer afraid when they saw this situation. They all stepped up to the door, spitting curses at these people. "Pa, you still want to enter our home? Take a good look at yourselves first." Seeing that they couldn't open the door no matter how hard they tried, the people outside left a few harsh words before falling silent. "Hey, Lydia, your door looks just like a normal one at first glance. How is it so sturdy?" My aunt beamed with a smile as she approached the door, stroking it with a look more affectionate than when she gazed at her own son. "Oh, it's all thanks to you. If you hadn't spread those rumors back then about me being the other woman, my door wouldn't have been smashed to pieces. What else could I do? With the door broken, I had no choice but to install a sturdier one to keep troublemakers out." I watched my aunt with a half-smile. This door was truly a blessing in disguise. Years ago, she had spread rumors everywhere that I was some official's mistress, though I walked the straight and narrow. The official she mentioned was indeed corrupt. He really did have a mistress. The scandal spread like wildfire. When the wife heard that the other woman was practically flaunting herself, how could she tolerate it? After tracking down my address, she gathered a crowd to smash my door. Though the misunderstanding was later cleared up, my door was gone. That wife was quite the character. To make amends, she installed a top-grade, ultra-durable door for me, joking that if the apocalypse came, no one outside would ever get through. Little did she know her words would come true. The apocalypse actually arrived. My thoughts snapped back, and I saw my aunt's smile freeze. She seemed to recall the nightmare of me shoving her head into the toilet, terrified I might strike again, and she hastily retreated behind my uncle. Tom seemed unusually fascinated by the door, dragging his bulky body toward it. Just as I shouted, "Stop!" the door clicked open from the inside. Tom had unlocked it. Thud. Tom's body slammed onto the floor with a heavy, muffled crash. The people outside the door hadn't left. They figured that since they couldn't open the door, they might as well station someone right in front of it. As long as they waited long enough, they were sure we'd come out eventually. What they didn't expect was that we would open the door so quickly. Well, look what we have here. And quite a crowd too. 4 girls and 2 guys. "Bob, go stand guard outside. Your brother and I are gonna have some fun first." The buzz-cut man stepped into the room first, scanning the surroundings. His eyes lit up when they landed on me and Nicole. The man named Bob was a bit confused and looked puzzled at the crew-cut leader. "Lee, didn't the boss say to call them as soon as there's any movement?" Lee, exasperated, slapped Bob and said impatiently, "Get out of here, you idiot. Call them over so they can have the meat while we get the scraps. Are you stupid? They definitely don't know we've already gotten in. There's food and women. Shouldn't we enjoy ourselves first? Get out now, we'll call you when we're done." The door closed again. The crew-cut man pointed a large machete at my uncle, who collapsed in fear. My aunt and mother were also terrified, crouching on the ground and crying. Seeing their reactions, the buzz-cut man smiled in satisfaction. He turned the knife toward me and Nicole, and when he noticed me shielding Nicole behind me, he grinned, his yellowed teeth making him look even more repulsive. "Sam, let's split them. I'll take this one, and the younger one can be yours." "All right." The bald man named Sam nodded with a grin. "Exactly what I was thinking." The buzz-cut man crooked his finger at me, signaling me to come closer. I obediently walked toward him, putting on a pained expression and begging them not to touch Nicole. If they really wanted a woman, I could cooperate. "Sis," Nicole wanted to run toward me, but my mom, who had somehow slipped over unnoticed, held her back firmly. Gathering her courage, Nicole blurted out her first words, "If you want food, take it. If you want women, we'll give you one. Just spare our lives. Please don't kill us, Mom." Nicole stared at my mother in disbelief, only to be met with a sharp slap across her face. The buzzcut man looked at us with amusement, then yanked me in front of him. "Your mom's really something, huh? Sold you off so quickly." I could only force a bitter smile, tears welling in my eyes. The buzzcut man's eyes darted around before he nodded, agreeing to take only me. Just as my mom and the others began to relax, he turned to Sam with a grin. "Sam, let's do this together." Sam, the more cautious one, frowned and said, "Together? What about the rest of them? Aren't you worried they'll run?" The buzzcut man twirled the knife in his hand, grinning at the terrified group who were frozen in fear. "Look at these cowards, they're already pissing themselves without us even doing anything. Relax, Third is guarding the door, and if that fails, Big Bro is downstairs. Where can they run in this apocalypse? Stepping outside means certain death. They won't dare. Hurry up, let's finish this quick before Big Bro catches us." Last time, the one downstairs disappeared before we got our turn. This time, we've got such a delicate beauty. Can't miss this chance. Seeing Sam nod in agreement, the buzzcut man threatened the others again. "Stay put right here. If we come out and find any of you moved, I'll chop you down on the spot." He mimed a swift slashing motion with the knife, and only when everyone nodded obediently did he flash a satisfied grin. The three of us entered the bedroom. "Lee, are we really letting them go? What about the boss?" The buzzcut man gave me a sinister smile and waved his hand dismissively. "Just fooling them, even if we go soft. The boss won't let them off, might as well play along." Wanted to try out all three of them anyway. For a moment, all three people in the room burst into laughter. "Ha ha 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 ha," going with the flow. The buzzcut man and the bald man, seeing me laughing along in the room, exchanged a glance and frowned. "Is this chick scared out of her mind? How are we supposed to have fun now?" Going with the flow, repeating these words. The next second I gave the buzzcut man a shoulder throw, while Lucky, hidden under the bed, leaped out and pinned the bald man down, biting his face hard. A scream echoed from inside the room. Nicole and my mom burst through the bedroom door. Seeing the scene inside, my mom grabbed the machete the buzzcut man had casually left nearby and swung it at him with all her might. Blood splattered across my mom's face. The buzzcut man convulsed a few times before going still. My uncle and the others, hearing the commotion, rushed in. The pungent smell of blood and the sight of crimson pooling on the floor made my aunt shriek, but my uncle clamped a hand over her mouth. At that moment, the bald man broke free from Lucky's bite and tried to bolt for the door, only to be sent flying by a powerful kick from Tom, who had just arrived. Before the bald man could get up, my mom slit his throat with the machete. Everyone in the room exhaled in relief, some from exhaustion, others from sheer terror, and sat down on the blood-stained floor without a second thought. I glanced at my mom, and she nodded at me. Although our relationship has not been very good over the years, we still have a tacit understanding in some aspects. For example, when I was humble and submissive in front of the guy with a crew cut, she could see at a glance that I already had a plan in my mind and actively cooperated with me to make that gesture just now. After a brief rest, Nicole was the first to speak up. "Is there still someone outside the door? If we kill them, will we be safe?" I shook my head, disagreeing with her idea. "Just now, that Lee mentioned their boss is still downstairs. We don't know exactly how many of them there are. Killing him recklessly would be disadvantageous for us, after today's ordeal." Tom's mind became sharper. After a few seconds of contemplation, he proposed his idea. "Then why don't we capture that guy called Bob, find out exactly how many of them there are, and then make our move? Anyway, we've already killed 2 of their men. It's a fight to the death now. Might as well gather some information and strike first." Everyone agreed with his suggestion. When the door was opened from the inside, Bob outside peeked in with a cheerful grin and said, "Lee, you guys are done already. That was so fast." Tom dragged Bob in like a chicken, and just as he was about to scream for help, Nicole stuffed a dirty rag into his mouth. My sister asks, "You answer, if you try to play tricks, do you see what happened to your 2 buddies in the room?" Nicole pressed a small knife against Bob's throat and threatened. The third one didn't dare to nod, afraid the sharp blade would slit his throat, so his upturned eyes blinked frantically, seeing his cooperation. I removed the tattered rag from his mouth and asked the first question, "How many of you are left downstairs?" The third one swallowed hard and answered, 5 more. "Any martial artists here?" Bob straightened his back at the question. only to see the 6 men surrounding him flash menacing looks. A shiver ran down his spine as he quickly replied, "There's one, just our boss. He used to run with the gangs," after asking a few more questions. We had a good grasp of the remaining men's backgrounds. While Bob was still grinning awkwardly and asking when we'd let him go, I snapped his neck without hesitation. Then the few of us gathered in a circle and began planning our counterattack. I went downstairs and quietly approached room 603. Even before getting close, the thick smell of blood already filled my nostrils. What caught my eye was the old woman who had been shouting at my door earlier, the mother-in-law of the woman who had jumped to her death. A kitchen knife was embedded in her head, her belly was split open, and her internal organs had already been scooped out. It seemed like a group of desperate outlaws. Probably no survivors were left in this entire family. I tried to sneak in by opening the door quietly, but the old gate, having been used for many years, creaked loudly at the slightest movement. "Who's there?" A sharp voice rang out simultaneously with the creak, and soon several people appeared before me. "Are you from upstairs?" The leading man had a scar on his face, and he looked like the big brother Bob had mentioned. The moment he saw me, he was visibly surprised, then immediately sensed something was wrong. "Where are the men guarding you?" I deliberately put on an angry expression and said coldly, "They're upstairs." I paused, then continued through gritted teeth, "Messing with my sister, they told me to come down and call you up." Hearing this, the short man standing beside the boss grew displeased. "Big bro, these 3 newcomers are so cunning, they actually dared to keep all the spoils for themselves. We must teach them a lesson when we get up there." The leader, Big Bro, nodded and signaled to me, "Lead the way." The moment I turned around, Big Bro's knife barely grazed off a lock of my hair. If I hadn't moved quickly, that knife might have taken off my head instead. Big Bro, the short man beside him, looked astonished, unable to comprehend why his leader had just killed a young girl. "Those useless idiots have already been taken care of by you, haven't they, little girl?" "What? Trying to lure us out to finish us all at once?" The leader smirked knowingly, as if he had already seen through my plan. I snapped my fingers and flashed him a wicked grin. "Bingo. Half right." With that, I quickly fled from room 603. The big guy was indeed cautious and didn't chase after me. He was actually half right. I did plan to take them all down, but I never said anything about luring them out. As the saying goes, catching turtles in a jar is the real way to go, and Scarface and his crew, they're the turtles. As the commotion downstairs grew louder, a smile slowly spread across my face. Soon after, the figures of Uncle and Tom appeared in the stairwell, panting heavily as they ran up from below. I gestured to the 2 of them, then quickly dragged the corpse from upstairs into the 6th-floor hallway before hiding inside the electrical box, waiting for the protagonist to arrive. Soon, one after another, zombies with twisted faces emerged in the stairwell, lured upstairs by Tom and Uncle. The scent of blood from the recently deceased corpse drew them one by one into room 603. As sounds of struggle erupted from room 603, our group swiftly emerged to shut the stairwell's main door, securing it with multiple chains. Now, the trap was set. Both the jar and the turtle were in place. Soon, the noise gradually subsided, and the few of us went upstairs, closing the door and shutting out the outside world. One night a few days later, as I lay in bed, a sudden thought crossed my mind, and a bag of bread materialized in my hand out of nowhere. That's right, from the moment I was reborn, I realized my spatial ability had returned with me. In my previous life, I narrowly escaped death and unexpectedly awakened this ability, but before I could tell them, I was killed. The supernatural ability in this life came so early, so the initiative is in my hands. In fact, half of the missing supplies from the supermarket had already been moved into my space. Some seeds I found earlier were also stored there for emergencies. I need to leave myself a way out. Even if Nicole and I have to go out alone one day, we must have food to eat. Just as I was pondering my next move, a sudden clap of thunder snapped me back to reality. Torrential rain poured from the sky, pounding heavily on the ground. The growls of the zombies downstairs grew strange, as if undergoing some kind of baptism. I bolted upright from the bed. How could I have forgotten this critical moment? The first zombie evolution is happening right now. The first batch of superpowered individuals also emerged after tonight. Does that mean there's something wrong with this rain? I don't know, because my spatial ability won't awaken until a year later, so I'm unaware of the conditions for the first wave of superpower awakenings. Thinking about having only a spatial ability, I started to wonder, if I go out now, could I awaken other abilities? If I can awaken more abilities and gain enough strength, does that mean I can take Nicole away from this home sooner? although a few days ago. It seemed like we worked together and achieved a great victory. In the end, we were fighting for ourselves. There were reasons why not fighting meant certain death, so everyone gave it their all. If we encounter danger again and can't overcome it, true human nature will be revealed. I don't want to gamble, nor dare to. I've never trusted them. No sooner thought than done. I sneaked out of the house under the cover of night. The night air was thick and foul, even with the rain falling. I carefully avoided the zombies that were about to walk towards me, only to notice they seemed drawn to something else. I followed their lead. Their sense of smell didn't seem sharp tonight. At least, none of them had noticed me yet. Minutes later, I stood on the rooftop, staring in shock at the scene before me. Zombies worshipping the moon. The moon they kneel before no longer appears gentle as before, but instead glows with an eerie red hue. The zombies merely repeated their kneeling motions mechanically. After watching for half an hour and seeing no useful information, I sighed and prepared to leave. A zombie that had been lurking in the shadows suddenly charged at me, thrusting its blackened nails toward me. The distance was too close, and I was completely unprepared. Can I escape this time? Bang! A loud noise rang in my ears, as if something had knocked the zombie away. I withdrew my initial movement and opened my eyes to see a young man standing in front of me, probably around 18 or 19 years old. It was him who had just thrown an oil barrel at the zombie. The zombie, after being knocked down, quickly got up and lunged at the two of us again. Go! I grabbed the young man's wrist and pulled him toward the stairs. The zombies worshipping the moon on the rooftop had already heard the commotion behind them. If we didn't run now, did we want to become their next meal? The young man wasn't in great shape. He was already panting after just a few steps. He waved at me, signaling for me to go ahead. What a joke! How could I possibly abandon the person who had just saved my life? I took a deep breath and, under his terrified gaze, hoisted him onto my shoulder. Damn sis, you're so fierce. The boy was half dragged over my shoulder, his voice trembling slightly. I knew it was from the jostling, but what could I do? I couldn't just leave him behind. The zombies behind us weren't slow. In fact, when they realized they couldn't catch up, they invented a new way downstairs, rolling straight down the staircase. As we reached the first floor, the zombies caught up with us. After setting the boy down, I could no longer worry about exposing my spatial ability. I pulled out an axe from the space and handed it to him for self-defense, while I charged forward with a shovel in hand. After smashing another zombie's head with the shovel, I felt a hint of trouble. The noise from the fight was too loud, and many zombies were already heading our way. If we kept fighting like this, who knew how many more zombies would be drawn in, and our stamina was definitely limited. Suddenly, a hand landed on my shoulder. My reflex was to swing the shovel, but my body froze uncontrollably. I can't move. A sigh came from beside me as the young man stepped in front. With a hand seal I couldn't comprehend, the snarling zombies began shattering their own skulls one by one. Me, just regaining mobility, I stared at the youth in astonishment. Under his inscrutable gaze, I had a bizarre thought. Back in the hallway when he let me go first, had he already figured out a solution? There weren't many zombies at that time, so it might have been easier to handle. I gave him an awkward smile and was about to apologize when I saw him collapse headfirst to the ground. My smile froze. Oh my goodness, that was quite loud. Hope it didn't ruin my face. Tonight yielded no gains, except for the boy I carried on my shoulder. When we got home, my mom and the others were shocked to see me dragging in a filthy person. Tom, with his bulky body, even leaped 3 feet high before quickly backing away from us, as if afraid we'd brought back some zombie virus. Lydia, what if this guy you brought back turns into a zombie later? Since we had previously worked together to kill the bad guys, my mom felt our relationship had improved a lot. Encouraged by my aunt, she spoke up again, disapproving of me bringing the young man back. I tossed them a pack of food I had taken out from my space in advance, successfully shutting them up. Last time, we had no choice but to let Tom and my uncle lure the zombies to the 6th floor, so there might still be zombies wandering around in the building that we hadn't locked up. We hadn't gone out these past few days, afraid of running into one by bad luck, which also led to our stockpiled food running low again. After tossing the young man into the bedroom, Nicole curiously asked me where he came from. After explaining the whole story to her, Nicole regarded the young man with deep respect. A person who saves others from peril in times of crisis can never be a bad person. Watching the unconscious young man, I furrowed my brow slightly. The ability he displayed earlier seemed like a psychic-type power, but it must have been recently awakened, otherwise, he wouldn't have passed out after just one use. Perhaps it was because I had attracted too many zombies. Cough, cough. I couldn't help but feel a little guilty. When I woke up in the morning, the boy was already chatting with Nicole in the living room, and the two seemed to be getting along quite well. Hello, big sister, hearing the noise behind him. The boy turned around and flashed me a smirk. His name was Jackson. During the chaos of the apocalypse, he had been separated from his family while fleeing and had been staying in an empty apartment in the neighboring building. At that time, he had heard the sound of zombies in the building and sneaked out to investigate. To his surprise, he found them worshipping the moon. Just as he was about to retreat, he saw me being ambushed by one. Believing that he couldn't just stand by and watch, he bravely charged forward to test the zombies' resilience. He admitted it was his first time confronting a zombie head-on. Usually, he relied on his psychic abilities to manipulate their judgment and evade danger time and again. Your psychic ability awakened long ago. Jackson was stunned for a moment before nodding. Maybe it's a talent. My ability existed right when the apocalypse first broke out, but after overusing it yesterday, my power seems to have grown stronger. I really have to thank you, sis, I chuckled dryly, crying rivers of tears in my heart. Why doesn't this kind of ability belong to me? Jackson stayed at my place, not just because he essentially saved my life, but also because I learned from our conversation that his cousin is Hank. Hank was the leader of the first base in the previous life, a golden thigh to cling to. If I can't cling to the golden thigh now, how about a golden calf? Maybe with the calf's help, a little jump could really get me to touch that golden thigh. Jackson wanted to find his cousin, and I also wanted to head to the base. We hit it off right away, just waiting for the right time to set off. But during this time, something happened that really made me furious. It seems my uncle's family also understands that without the ability to protect themselves, survival in the apocalypse is absolutely impossible, so they also go out to practice on lone zombies. My fears were realized. We encountered a few zombies. Initially, we thought they were as slow and mindless as before, but we were wrong. Just as we killed 4 zombies and were about to head back, another group suddenly appeared. They had been lying in ambush all around, waiting for the right moment to strike. Because there were quite a few of them, it took us some effort to fight them off. Just as I had finished decapitating one zombie, Nicole let out a scream. I turned around to see her being pushed into the horde by my aunt. At the critical moment, Jackson and I rushed over and snatched Nicole from the jaws of the zombies. Fortunately, Nicole hadn't been bitten, though she was quite shaken. While Jackson and I were busy checking on Nicole, we had no time to tend to the others, so Tom ended up losing a leg. After dealing with the zombies, my aunt and the others wailed and demanded an explanation from us. I just sneered coldly in response, my resentment growing stronger. Did they really think I hadn't noticed how they often used Nicole as a human shield, whether intentionally or not? In the end, it was my mother's sharp rebuke that put a stop to my aunt's unreasonable accusations. At night, when everyone was sound asleep, a scream pierced through the long darkness, and turned into a zombie. Today, a zombie climbed into the house through the window. Fortunately, it was discovered in time, and everyone thought no one was injured. No one noticed that Aunt had been bitten, and she didn't make a sound herself because she knew that once she revealed the fact that she had been bitten, what awaited her would be abandonment and then a miserable death. What if she doesn't turn into a zombie after being bitten? What if? She must be thinking that, but she's wrong. My aunt no longer recognized anyone, snarling as she lunged at my uncle and Tom, while I stood by and watched. At that moment, I thought to myself, if they died, I wouldn't have to dirty my hands. How perfect. Suddenly, a figure rushed toward my aunt. It was my mom. She swung the kitchen cleaver at my aunt, striking her several times. The newly transformed aunt moved sluggishly, and by sheer luck, my mom's blows landed on her head, killing her instantly. Then my mother hugged my uncle and Tom, their tears of joy making it seem as if the 3 of them were the real family. I pursed my lips and quickly understood. Indeed, in my mother's mind, my aunt was ultimately an outsider by marriage. Sophia, Keith, and Tom were the ones truly bound by blood, inseparable as flesh and bone. Standing on the balcony gazing into the distance, the air still carried the lingering scent of blood. Jackson silently approached and handed me a bottle of soda. Not happy, I took the drink, shook my head, and looked out the window at the aunt who had long been devoured downstairs. You still showed mercy. I turned to look at Jackson, who smiled at me, revealing 2 small canine teeth. I saw you open the window, and it was you who let the zombies in. I didn't argue with him, just silently watched him. He smirked at me, then threw an arm over my shoulder like we were old buddies. Sis, if you can't bring yourself to do it, I can help you. He hadn't finished speaking when a startled exclamation came from behind. I turned around to find Nicole standing behind Jackson and me. "Sis, you too," her wide-eyed, hand-over-mouth expression as if she'd discovered a new continent made me frown. I knew she'd misunderstood, but I didn't explain. After all, the truth would out. I removed Jackson's arm from my shoulder, said, "No need," and went back inside. Over the next few days, Jackson kept finding opportunities to bring up helping me, but I flatly refused each time. Jackson once again brought Lucky to me. Watching Lucky frolic happily at Jackson's feet left me somewhat astonished. Lucky had always only recognized Nicole and me. Previously, when Tom tried to pet him, he nearly bit off one of Tom's fingers. This guy certainly has some tricks up his sleeve. As for how he managed to win Lucky's favor, I still don't know the reason yet. No wonder. Jackson's unique charisma always manages to make everyone smile. I think almost everyone in the household likes Jackson, with the sole exception being Tom. Tom was an accident, perhaps out of some inexplicable jealousy between men. Tom felt compelled to compare himself to Jackson in every way, especially after becoming crippled. His mind grew even more twisted, developing an unprecedented envy toward Jackson, leading him to provoke Jackson repeatedly. However, Jackson effortlessly countered every one of his attempts, as Jackson put it, incompetent methods, mere petty tricks. As for how twisted Tom had become, I soon found out, and at that moment, I wished I could skin him alive. A month later, Jackson successfully made contact with Hank. Hank sent word for us to head to the neighboring city, where his base was in its early stages of construction. Thinking back to the fully equipped base from my past life, I couldn't help but silently admire Hank's capability. If given the chance this time, I'd like to contribute before the base reaches its full scale. After all, over these past few months, besides gathering food, I've also collected some seeds. With the land contaminated after the apocalypse, it would be good to have the opportunity to do my part. In a way, it's also to see the base I never reached in my previous life. As for my uncle's family, since Tom recently awakened Earth-based abilities, they probably won't trek through mountains and rivers with us to a base with an uncertain future. But my mother's decision to stay or go has left me in a bit of a dilemma. Nicole is kind-hearted and definitely wants to take her along, but my mom might stay behind for Tom's sake, which leaves Nicole. Shaking my head to clear the thoughts, I refocused and used the shovel to smash the zombie's head, digging out the crystal core inside. Beside me, Lucky barked eagerly, trying to catch my attention. Smiling, I tossed the crystal core into its mouth. After all these days, I finally understood why Jackson could win Lucky's favor. He often fed it crystal cores. To be honest, I was genuinely angry when I first discovered Jackson feeding Lucky with crystal cores, but after seeing that Lucky had no adverse reactions, I silently allowed his behavior. Anyway, Lucky loves eating them, so why not be happy if someone's feeding her? When we returned home once again with a full haul, Nicole's screams from inside the house made me panic. I rushed in, ignoring everyone's attempts to stop me, and kicked open Nicole's bedroom door. Nicole was screaming and struggling on the bed, while the person tearing at her clothes on top of her was Tom, this bastard. So this was the reason Nicole withered away in an instant in her previous life. As her older sister, I actually never noticed. If I had come back any later, I truly dare not imagine the consequences. Furious, I shoved Tom away, covered Nicole's body with a blanket, and then punched him in the face. "Are you even human? I'll kill you." I noticed blood on Tom's abdomen, and combined with the small knife in Nicole's hand, I realized Nicole had already injured him, which was why Tom hadn't succeeded. A few elbow strikes from me, and Tom instantly went limp. I tightly gripped his neck, squeezing hard. Just a little more force and I could strangle him to death. Uncle watched my actions, already too terrified to move. My mother rushed over to pull me away, but I shoved her aside. This forced me to change my position, and the freed Tom immediately struggled to get up. Under their astonished gazes, I pulled a shovel from thin air and was about to stab Tom when Nicole, who had rushed out of the house, grabbed the handle of the shovel. I froze, halting my movement. Nicole, tears streaming down her face, slapped Tom several times herself, then staggered toward my mom. My mom wore a guilty expression on her face. Anyone could tell she had done something wrong. "Mom, you're the one who gave me to Tom. Are you even my mother anymore?" Hearing Nicole still call her Mom, the guilt on her face faded, replaced by a sense of entitlement. "Keep the good stuff in the family. Your brother Tom isn't married yet. Marrying him won't do you any harm." It seemed like ethics and morals meant nothing to her. The more she spoke, the more justified she felt, and her voice grew louder. Are you even human, giving away your own daughter? What do my sister and I even mean to you? Nicole's hysteria made my nose sting with emotion. I just saw your sister summon a shovel out of thin air. That's spatial ability, isn't it? No wonder nearly half the supplies were missing when we checked that supermarket. She hid them all herself. If she has food, why won't she share it? I knew you were all ungrateful wretches. We've fed and clothed you, and this is how you repay us. Nicole let out a cold laugh. Fed and clothed us. How dare you say that with a straight face? You're utterly shameless. No matter what, I'm still your mother. My mom stiffened her neck, refusing to admit her mistake. You've never liked me or my sister since we were little. You're Tom's mom, aren't you? You're insane. My mom was provoked into a rage, as if Nicole's words had struck her deepest wound. I wish I were Tom's mom. Do you really think you matter that much to me? You little bastards should have died long ago. The truth is she never regarded Nicole and me as her daughters. I understood that the moment I was reborn, but Nicole didn't. Now, she understands too. Whack. Nicole slapped her across the face, then snatched the shovel from my hands and thrust it violently into Tom's crotch. Tom screamed in pain, blood pooling on the ground. He had been pretending to be dead, but now he completely passed out from the agony. From now on, I sever all mother-daughter ties with you. Whether you live or die will no longer be my concern. The trio and the dog had been on the road for several days. After uttering those words to sever ties, Nicole left home with me and Jackson. Actually, we had prepared the getaway vehicle long ago, but had been struggling to find the right moment to leave. This incident, in a way, finally allowed us to break free from them completely. Jackson and I took turns driving, and at the moment, I was sitting in the passenger seat, watching Nicole teasing Lucky through the rearview mirror. She had barely spoken the entire journey, appearing as if the earlier events hadn't affected her at all, but I knew that her indifferent attitude was even more concerning. The truth must have hit her hard. After parking the car in a safe spot, Jackson, ever perceptive, took Lucky outside to hunt zombies, while I sat beside Nicole in silence, simply keeping her company. I always knew why you didn't like her, Nicole suddenly spoke up, her tone filled with desolation. I kept hoping she would notice us. I thought she would eventually change her mind and realize who her real child was, but I was wrong. It was her who let Tom into my room, just because Tom said he liked me. She handed me over to him without a second thought. Do you know, sis, even Uncle thought her idea was absurd. Nicole's eyes were brimming with tears, and I couldn't bear to let her continue, wanting to change the subject, but she shook her head. Sister, I'm sorry, I thought she would get better, so I never listened to you, but now I understand. She's just sick. Tears welled up in my eyes too, and I quickly agreed. Yes, she's just sick. She can't see how amazing we are and instead prefers those rotten fish and stinking shrimp, but I still can't bring myself to completely destroy her. Am I just useless, sis? Watching Nicole with tears streaming down her face, my heart ached unbearably. Perhaps both Nicole and I inherited our mother's merciful heart, making it impossible for us to truly harm our own mother. It's okay, Nicole, let's just do what we feel is right. We only need to act with a clear conscience. As I watched Nicole finally release her emotions, I felt a wave of relief. I had been genuinely afraid she might do something drastic in her despair. Fortunately, she finally figured it out on her own. The withered Nicole from the past life is still blooming. When Jackson returned with Lucky and saw Nicole in better spirits, he walked over and bumped me with his shoulder, nearly knocking me off balance. Sis, has she come to terms with it? I cried out in pain, glared at him irritably, and nodded. There were still 3 days' journey to the base in the neighboring city. If nothing unexpected happened, we would arrive soon. As it turned out, one should never make bold predictions lightly, because accidents can strike without warning. Humans can enhance their supernatural abilities through the crystal cores of zombies, while among the zombies themselves, there seems to be cases of zombies devouring other zombies to evolve. A zombie that has consumed other zombies becomes significantly more powerful. Take the one currently clinging to the car roof. For example, it's a zombie that has undergone a second evolution. Its body seems to have suction cups, allowing it to firmly adhere to the car roof. Despite Jackson executing several sharp drifts, he couldn't shake it off. Thick, viscous saliva dripped from its mouth onto the roof, quickly corroding a large area. This zombie's saliva is corrosive. Damn it, Jackson cursed angrily, attempting to use his psychic powers to control the zombie. But he was still busy driving and dodging the zombies lunging from the roadside. Unable to focus his mind, I pulled out a brand new iron shovel from my space, This shovel was much sharper than the previous one and felt more comfortable to use. After exchanging a glance with Jackson, I opened the car window and flipped onto the roof. The zombie on the roof let out a shrill shriek upon noticing someone climbing up. I sidestepped the zombie's first strike, drove the shovel in my hand into what could barely be called its hand, and pinned it firmly to the car roof. Seizing the few seconds it was restrained, I rushed toward it. Drool dripped from the zombie's mouth as it roared incessantly from the pain, thrashing violently in struggle. The shovel could only restrain it, so the zombie could still attack me with its other hand or even its mouth, however, with one limb immobilized. Its other movements, whether in speed or strength, should be somewhat diminished. Once again evading the zombie's attack, I swiftly pulled out several giant iron nails from my space and drove them hard into the nearly freed zombie. Over the past few months, I've been researching how to make spatial abilities more offensive. Actually, on the night I encountered Jackson, I had planned to use my newly developed method to fight the zombie that ambushed me, by setting an initial velocity with my mind when bringing objects from the spatial dimension into the real world. If the objects from the spatial dimension were highly offensive weapons like knives, adding this initial velocity would make their lethality formidable. Sure enough, as several iron nails pinned the zombie firmly in place, it lost all ability to move. I pulled out the shovel and drove it hard into its brain. In the oozing brain matter, there was a pink crystal core larger than usual. I picked it up and climbed back into the passenger seat through the car window. "Sis, you're amazing," Nicole said with a face full of envy. I turned my head and casually tossed the freshly acquired pink crystal core into Lucky's already open mouth, then smiled at Nicole, turning back again. I suddenly caught sight of Jackson's grave expression and couldn't help but freeze for a moment. The car came to a stop just in time, and following his gaze, I looked ahead. Ahead of the vehicle appeared zombies like the one that had been crawling on the roof earlier, and there was more than one. Damn it, if these were ordinary zombies, we could just plow through them, but these zombies' saliva was corrosive. What if every one of them spat at us when we hit them? Unbelievable. With 3 of us and a dog, 2 of us being superhumans, though my spatial ability is practically useless, after calculating the remaining iron nails and weapons in my spatial storage, I realized our chances of survival were slim to none. But if we didn't fight, we'd be waiting for death. We quickly got out of the car, ready to make a desperate stand. Jackson used his psychic powers to make some zombies self-destruct while immobilizing others. Those few seconds of slowed zombie movements were Nicole's and my best opportunity to strike. After cutting down most of the zombies like chopping vegetables, we gradually ran out of strength. This can't go on, we need to think of a way. Suddenly, a blur flashed past my eyes and bit into the zombie that was trying to ambush me. Duo, I screamed in terror as Lucky pounced on the zombie, only to be grabbed by the frenzied undead that was about to rip out his heart. My blood ran cold as I remembered how Lucky had desperately tried to save me in my previous life, only to meet a gruesome end. I lunged forward, determined to save him this time, but it was too late. The zombie's claws were already within reach, and I couldn't make it in time. Lucky let out a piercing scream and suddenly spat out phlegm. Have you ever seen a dog spit phlegm? Perhaps you have. But have you ever seen a dog that can spit and corrode zombies? I have. I grabbed Lucky in one swift motion, dumbfounded as I looked at the zombie corpse with a large corroded hole in its head, then turned to see Lucky sticking its tongue out at me. At first, I didn't notice anything unusual, but suddenly, I realized something felt off. Lucky's usually smooth and soft body now felt like a rigid, unyielding wall of metal. I tapped it with my fist, and the spot where my knuckles made contact emitted a metallic clang. My dog isn't acting right, it seems to have mutated. After Jackson finished off the surrounding zombies, he took the metal block from my hand and raised an eyebrow at me with a hint of pride. Wow, perseverance pays off. After consuming so many crystal cores, Lucky has finally awakened an ability. It looks like a metal-based power, but why is it drooling? As Jackson reached for a tissue to wipe Lucky's drool, I quickly stopped him, only to see the tissue completely intact. Jackson also noticed the zombie corpse with a hole in its head at this moment, and the 2 of us exchanged silent glances. Finally, he broke the silence. It seems the corrosive effect of its saliva only works on zombies, probably because of that pink crystal core you fed it earlier. Now our Lucky has become a little hero who can take on 3 zombies at once. How amazing! Jackson set the wriggling Lucky down, and as soon as it touched the ground, it went off to play its little head-exploding game with the zombies. However, its combat technique was just too abstract, and I couldn't help but facepalm. with Lucky, the natural enemy of zombies, accompanying us along the way. We successfully reached the base. As I finally met the base leader Hank, I suddenly realized he wasn't quite what I had imagined. I had imagined that someone capable of establishing such a large base would at least be a mature and steady middle-aged man. But upon meeting him in person, I was surprised to find him unexpectedly young. The base currently doesn't have too many people. After handing over the plant seeds from my space to Hank, I finally felt at ease. The base has professional cultivators, so it won't be long before we can enjoy fresh vegetables and fruits. Because Jackson had connections, he was immediately assigned various tasks by Hank upon entering the base. Nicole, having no special abilities, was placed under Hank's supervision to verify the information of people entering the base. Even Lucky successfully secured an official position. As for me, I became the most idle person in the base. After all, there are quite a few space ability users in the base, and their spaces are larger and more impressive. However, my unique, flying nails, technique inspired many other space ability users to imitate it. Soon, variations like flying swords and flying gourds started popping up everywhere. Even the base chef has started cooking at lightning speed, maximizing the productivity of the base's meals. No one has to worry about going hungry anymore. The base is much safer than I imagined, aside from scheduled outings to eliminate zombie hordes. Life inside the base can be described as extremely comfortable. Hank truly has the leadership skills of a base commander. In just 2 short months here, the base's size has doubled, and its reputation has spread far and wide. Many survivors have come seeking refuge, gradually joining the base. Among them are quite a few talented and extraordinary individuals, and through everyone's collaborative efforts, the quality of life in the base has surprisingly reached levels comparable to before the apocalypse. Days passed slowly like this. Humans were evolving, and so were the zombies. It seems the struggle between humans and zombies will never end. A year later, I spotted Tom's and my mother's names on the list of people entering the base. Truly, the wicked never die. Their harm lingers for 1,000 years. I was puzzled about how Tom could still be alive after losing so much blood. I only learned through others' casual conversation that Tom survived because after we left, my mother, heartbroken at seeing Tom lying in a pool of blood, awakened a healing ability in her overwhelming grief, which ultimately saved Tom's life. Looking at the mother and son relationship written in the registration form, I sneered inwardly. What truly transcendent maternal love that surpasses life and death? At this thought, I suddenly wanted to see them, not for any particular reason, just to see how they were doing now and whether my mother had made any progress. Neither Tom nor my mother possessed outstanding abilities, both still at a basic level, so they were assigned to a bungalow on the outskirts of the base. As soon as I arrived, I saw Tom kick my mom out while she was still holding a bowl of noodles. I heard that Tom had become particularly moody after losing something, and today's incident proved it true. Yet even so, my mom still didn't leave him. She knocked on the door for a long time without getting a response, so she reluctantly sat on the doorstep with the noodles in hand. When she looked up and met my gaze, she paused for a moment before doing something unexpected. She raised the bowl of noodles toward me. After all, we were mother and daughter once, and I eerily understood what she meant. She was bragging that with Tom, she could eat well, while with me, she could only drink watery rice porridge with barely any grains. This is hard to judge. I wish her eternal optimism. Later, I heard by chance that both of them had died, and I was stunned. It turned out Tom had pushed her into a horde of zombies. He hated my mom because she not only killed my aunt after she turned into a zombie but also pushed my uncle into a zombie crowd during their escape. Even if my mother's intention was to protect Tom, without my mother's protection, Tom quickly died at the hands of the zombies. After all, no one could do what my mother did, a small healing-type support who refused to stay safely in the secure zone and instead risked her life to protect the crippled Tom every time she went out on missions. Nicole and I ultimately never received her apology. She spent her entire life stubbornly refusing to see the truth. I stopped dwelling on this matter, but recently, there have indeed been 2 other things that have been giving me a headache. At some point, Nicole and Hank actually took a liking to each other. Although we managed to save Nicole in time that day, the incident left an indelible shadow in her heart. For a long time afterward, she couldn't interact normally with men. I had assumed Nicole would be interested in someone her own age, like Jackson, but Hank is several years older than even me, her sister, so I ended up being the one to stand in their way. No wonder I've been finding Hank increasingly irritating lately. Turns out he's been eyeing my little sister. While I'm grateful that Hank initially noticed Nicole's awkwardness around the opposite sex and took the initiative to have her accompany him to meet more people, which significantly improved Nicole's condition, but this is a far cry from Nicole marrying him. I was worried that Nicole might have developed a dependency out of gratitude, mistaking this dependency for affection. So I objected to their relationship due to their significant age gap. However, after a heartfelt conversation with Nicole that lasted all night, I came to understand that her feelings for Hank were genuine, and so I gave my approval to their relationship. And the second matter was that Jackson, this kid, actually had feelings for me. When he nervously confessed to me for the first time, I was truly taken aback. I never expected Jackson to harbor such thoughts about me. After going through 3 or 4 more confession incidents, my first reaction shifted from outright rejection to actually pondering whether Hank or I was the older one in this scenario. After rejecting his 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th confession, Jackson finally snapped. He couldn't take it anymore. He teamed up with that little traitor Nicole to drug me. Jackson's psychic abilities had grown so strong that he could actually lure me into his bed, though I was 100% willing at the time. One wild night, and Jackson really had me hooked. After all, I'm a responsible woman, cough cough asterisk. But Jackson became petty, constantly bringing up my reluctance, saying I didn't actually like him and was only with him out of a sense of duty. Then, at a dinner party, Nicole got drunk and blurted out, "Sis, I knew you liked him all along, you just couldn't admit it." That left me blushing furiously. Jackson pressed for details, and Nicole patted her chest with a grin. Heh. Why else would I agree to help you trick my sister? She's the stubborn type. If you don't play a little dirty, she'll never admit she likes you. I sneered when I caught the glimpse of Jackson's surprised expression. Oh, now he's not acting all petty like before, throwing tantrums and saying I don't love him. I could already picture his smug face in the future, and sure enough, just as I thought of it, I saw Jackson wearing that punchable expression. So my wife had her eyes on me all along. I didn't give him any facial reaction, just leaned close to his ear and said one sentence. The impact of that sentence was quite effective. Jackson's expression immediately froze after I spoke. This is a surefire way to handle it, little guy. Do you really think I can't deal with you? The apocalypse continues, and even though we don't know when it will end, we now all have our own steady happiness. Seize the present. And may you live without regrets. All those sick-minded people can go to hell. That's all the story. What do you think of this story? Share with me in the comments section. What would you do if you were in this situation? Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.